You are all set, Pat.
All right, so welcome everyone. Being 6:30 on Wednesday, March 16th, and having quorum, I'll open the planning board meeting for Wednesday, March 16th. This evening, we do have two public hearings. One is a continuation and one is a new public hearing. We still are fully remote per order of the town manager. No in-person attendance for the members of the public will be permitted. We'll make every effort to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time. Oh, whatever Jennifer just did, I lost my screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Here, I was sharing the agenda, but I can certainly take that down. Sorry.
That's all right. I'm just my screen came off. I'm sorry. You think by now I'd know this by heart, right? The meeting is being recorded, and 48 hours we'll post a link of the recording on the town's website and other social media pages. The following members of the Bridgewater Planning Board are participating remotely. I'm Patrick Driscoll, the chair, Mr. Raymond Ajemian, Mrs. Jean Garino, the clerk. So I guess we also have to fill the clerk position. This is Jean's last meeting after 10 years. Mr. Michael McDonald, the vice chairman, Mr. Stephen Geller, and Ms. Astrid Rojas, the associate member. During the meeting, all votes will be taken as roll calls. The following Bridgewater Town staff is participating remotely as well. Mrs. Jennifer DeVobrian, she's the Community and Economic Development Director. Mr. Greg Tanzi, the town engineer. At this point, everyone's mics is muted. The board's mics will be unmuted through the whole meeting. And as items appear on the agenda, the project representatives' mics will be unmuted. When we have a public hearing that allows for public comment, we ask that you use the chat feature to ask your question by listing your name and address and your question. The host, who this evening is Mrs. DeVobrian, will recognize all questions in order. You can use the raise my hand feature in the participant menu, and you'll be unmuted when the host recognizes you. Again, when asking questions or providing feedback on a project, please state your name and address before asking a question. If you're on the telephone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand. So we have a continuation of 900 Bedford Street. This is presented by Calare Properties. This is a site plan review continuation. The meeting was opened up 2 meetings ago, and the way the public hearings will work is we'll ask the project representatives to present the project. We'll then ask the board to ask questions of staff and the proponent, and then we'll open it up for public comment. So I will open the public hearing for 900 Bedford Street. This is Calare Properties, Inc. And if the project representatives are here and would like to update us on the site plan, they could do so at this time.
Great, thank you, Chair and members of the board for your time tonight. My name is Zachary Richards with Bowler. We're the civil engineering consultant on the project.
And Zachary, if I could just interrupt you for 1 minute.
No problem.
Just for everybody's benefit on the board, we did receive a staff review from engineering. I think that came in today. We did receive some correspondence, a planner's report from Mrs. Jennifer DeVobrian, and we received some other information today. So if everybody didn't get that, we can ask Mrs. DeVobrian to share it after Zachary makes his, Mr. Richards makes his case. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So yeah, obviously we have been busy at work with the town and the various departments and staff to address all the comments that we've received to date since the last hearing, as well as some of the planning board feedback that we received at the last hearing about a month ago. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's see. So hopefully everyone can see my screen. Just as a quick reminder, this is This is the industrial project at 900 Bedford Street, proposed warehouse industrial facility. Big picture, as the chair alluded to, we've been responding to all comments. I think at this point, it was, I think, just today that we got a satisfactory letter, if you will, from the engineering department and the town engineer, that we had addressed all the comments received as part of the stormwater review and utility review. We also have responded to all the comments and met with various other departments to address comments received to date. So I think we're in great shape there, but happy to dive into any of those details as appropriate. One thing I'll point out that you can see on this plan that I'm showing here, if everyone can see my screen, is that we did address one of the board's comments of adding and increasing the number of trees along the frontage of the building here. I think we essentially doubled those and thought that was a nice addition and good feedback from the board that was incorporated. Some of the other feedback, we heard a lot about the lighting plan and some of the comments there, concerns regarding dark sky and whether that was compliant. So we did refine that plan slightly, update that based on some of the engineering details and comments. We confirmed that all those light fixtures are dark sky compliant. So they actually have internal shields as well that prevent glare from portraying onto abutting properties. And we did confirm that we'll use a little bit of a warmer temperature there, which is more of an orange than some of the bright blue industrial looking lights. So that was something that we also heard feedback and a request to stay under 5,000 Kelvin, which is one of those warmer temperatures. Some of the feedback we heard from the public that we just wanted to share one slide on was the distance to one of the abutting neighborhoods. So we put together this exhibit that we thought did a really good job of showing just how far the development is from that adjacent neighborhood. And as you can see, I think we estimated on the fly that it was about 800 feet, but we're over 1,200 feet from the single family home residential neighborhood at the rear of the site there, and quite a distance further than our abutter to the right or to the south of us. So we think that does a good job of relaying, again, in addition to the dark sky compliant and shields of the lighting, how lighting should not be an issue from that perspective. I'm going to pass it over to Jason Adams from McMahon briefly, just to talk to one of the other comments that we heard at the last hearing.
Yes, good evening. For the record, Jason Adams with McMahon Associates, the traffic engineer on the project. At the last hearing, there were comments raised about the potential project impact on Fireworks Circle. So we completed a supplemental analysis. We prepared a technical memo, which I believe was submitted to the town today, reviewing the crash data at Fireworks Circle to understand the safety of the intersection, as well as reviewing trip generation, capacity analysis, and the operations of the Fireworks Circle intersection with Bedford Street. Our review showed that there were no reported crashes in the Mass DOT database from 2015 to 2019 at that intersection. We are showing a very limited number of vehicle trips traveling past Fireworks Circle, mainly because of the configuration of the site, which has two access points and allows vehicles to seek out the most efficient path, whether they're headed north or south on Bedford Street, and therefore limiting the number of vehicle trips past Fireworks Circle. We completed a capacity analysis for both the weekday morning and weekday afternoon peak hours, which showed that the operations of Fireworks Circle are not noticeably impacted by the project site. And therefore, our conclusion is that there is no appreciable impact to the fireworks circle operations as a result of this project. Happy to answer any questions you may have, but that is the general overview of what we prepared after hearing discussion about fireworks circle at the last hearing.
Great, thank you, Jason. So with that, we do also have Jeff Chuckway here with the applicant Claire Properties. And any of us are happy to answer any questions. But I think we, as we've shown, we've been hard at work since the last hearing to incorporate or address any outstanding comments. So with that, I'll turn it over to the board, and thanks again for your time tonight.
Okay. Jennifer, could you bring up the response letter from Mr. Tanzi and the responses from the applicant, just so that the public and the board can go through that with Mr. Tanzi?
Yes, give me 1 second to just share my screen.
And I believe there was a letter from Mr. Tanzi today as well.
You see that?
Yeah. There was also a letter from the applicant stating how they addressed each one. I don't know if we need both of them. I don't know if we need either one of them, but Mr. Tanzi, do you want to talk about, I know since our last meeting, you had identified a number of things that need to be updated or improved upon. You had also asked for test pits to be performed in the field. I know from reading your memo today, you did witness those test pits. I think you said 9 of them were dug at different locations. So I also know that last time the discussion about May Avenue came up and whatnot. So could you just update us and the public? I know you submitted this letter to us, but just for the public's benefit as to what has taken place and where we are with this project at this point.
Sure. One of the biggest things that was done was the test pits in the detention basins. The DEP requires that a minimum of 3 test pits get performed in each of the stormwater basins. So there are 3 stormwater basins on site. So a total of 9 soil evaluations were performed. Again, I did witness those test pits being dug, and I took notes, my own field notes. The applicant reported their findings, and their findings matched mine. We looked for soil type, soil conditions, and groundwater elevations. These are all factors that are conducive to the proper function of the stormwater management system as it relates to the ability to retain the stormwater and dispose of it through infiltration. And we also had some treatment corrections. They upgraded the details on some of the treatment devices that they're using. Also the way they analyzed their total suspended solids removal. They updated their report on that. We also took a pretty good look at the lighting plan. The first go around, there was some inconsistencies with the lighting specs and the number of lights that were listed on their lighting plan. And I asked them to revise that, make sure that the lights were shielded. They didn't have to make it dark sky compliant, but they did anyway, which is good. My suggestion to them was to go with a cooler color fixture, and they reduced it from 5,000 degrees Kelvin down to approximately 3,000 degrees Kelvin, I believe it was. It was a substantially cooler light fixture color. And this will help the abutters out back. You have to have lighting on a project like this. I can't say for sure that you won't be able to see any light going through the trees, but The amount of light will be less intense, and it'll serve the community a lot better. The water department had some comments. They wanted a fire flow test, and the applicant responded to the water department's comments. And I think, well, I haven't heard back from the water department. I think they sent that out for review to environmental partners. And there was, they did some cleanup, or they took a look at the landscape plan as mentioned earlier. They added some trees. They also made sure that there wouldn't be any vegetation that would interfere with firefighting equipment. They revised the O&M plan and had a few things added for maintenance that dealt with components of the stormwater basin, and also they had a mow strip is what they called it, and it's just basically a maintenance crushed stone strip underneath the guardrail so that weed and vegetation doesn't grow up. And I had some ideas that I think would be a little bit more lasting. They were proposing a 4-inch thick layer of stone. I think an 8-inch thick layer of stone would be more adequate in controlling nuisance vegetation, and they gladly revised their detail on that. And then I touched upon earlier the water quality inlets. One of the units was not specified in the last go around. They since have specified the unit that they're proposing, and I'm satisfied that that would treat the water quality volume. They also revised a lot of these stone channel swales. We made those more conducive to the use, and what we've done is we've standardized the cross-sectional widths and lengths and depths of each channel, so that there'd be no confusion in the field, that each channel will be properly and adequately constructed. And they did analyze a cross-section channel on one of the more critical areas of the site. So I'm confident that those channels will have the hydraulic capacity to handle the 100-year storm. They did justify using the NOAA intensity rates that they use, so I'm satisfied with that. And again, now we're getting into the BMP comments, and with their drainage. There wasn't a whole lot there. There was a few things with standard 4. But they revised them, and so I was satisfied with what they did. Standard 5 doesn't apply to this project, neither did standard 6 and 7. Standard 8, they are required to prepare a SWIP plan before they start construction and get, it's actually an EPA permit. And I asked them as soon as they get that, get coverage under the general construction permit that NIPDES puts out, that they would furnish us with a copy of that permit. That can be a condition of approval if the board so desires. And the O&M plan, there was some minor additions that I asked them to put in, and they added it to the O&M, so I was satisfied with that. Again, here's the the water department. They did ask for a fire flow test. Apparently, a fire flow test was performed. I talked to Jonas Koslowskis about the sanitary connection, and he doesn't see that as being a problem. There's not a whole lot of pressure in that line. It's a 4-inch line. It will still have to be designed and verified by the pump manufacturer. The applicant has stated that he is going to have those pumps sized by the pump supplier, and he will furnish the engineering division with their findings for our review. And also Jonas will get a copy of that as well for his records. And then we went down into the traffic study. There really wasn't a whole lot of comments on that. They seem to cover the bases pretty well. They did address some of the comments that came up with the public about fireworks circle as they presented earlier. And that pretty much is everything. And if you or any board member has any question for me, I'd be more than happy to answer it.
Mrs. DeBoer, I know you also had a memo that you updated. Is there anything you'd like to add for the board?
No, I think my memo pretty much said that they've addressed all the comments that were asked of them, and I don't know of any special conditions if the board is so inclined to vote this evening.
Okay, so with that, could I ask if any board members have any questions at this point?
Yeah, I have one question, a couple questions, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'm assuming from Mr. Tanny, based on your analysis, you see no reason not to approve this project this evening.
That's correct.
Yeah. My second question is, I brought up at the last meeting, I believe, and I apologize for not remembering who I talked to about about gifting money to the town for replacing the trees that you're going to be cutting down. And I believe whoever spoke said that they would be open to that. And I question now what the response would be with that request. In other words, how much money are you willing to give so that the town of Bridgewater can use the money to plant trees around the rest of the town?
This is Jeff Checkaway with Calais Properties. If I was the one that you spoke with last month, and yeah, you know, we did agree that we would put forth a donation, and the amount that we were agreeing to put forth for donation of trees to be planted elsewhere was $15,000 for this project.
Okay. Want to do 20?
If it's a negotiation, shouldn't I say
No, listen.
No.
First, I think you have been very agreeable in terms of of meeting our desires with this project, in particular for the lighting. And we do appreciate you willing, without putting up a struggle in a sense, willing to give money to the town. So if 15,000 is what you feel is proper, we thank you for it. If you feel you can give a little bit more, we'd also appreciate that. The only thing I would ask, though, is that that money be deposited within the town prior to cutting any trees down. That's all. And that'd be one of the conditions.
Yeah, and this is Jeff again. And you know, I know Zach kind of mentioned we've all been hard at work. I just want to kind of stress too that not only our side, but we've had a tremendous amount of support, obviously from Greg Tanzi with all the work he's done, and with Jennifer. And we really appreciate everything that's been done from the town staff for this project over the last month, and it's, you know, certainly been tremendous in helping us get responses out in a timely manner to all those things. And like I said, we definitely appreciate all the hard work the town's put in. It certainly goes a long way. And with that too, we definitely would be willing to move that up to $20,000 for you if you wanted to make that a condition of approval tonight. That's
good.
fine as well.
I appreciate the willingness to do that, and we appreciate the cooperation you've done with the town. Thank you.
So, Mr. Jimmy, and I also want to thank them for adding to beautification of Bedford Street. I mean, they also did add, if you look at the plan, there's significantly more trees along Bedford Street as well. So I think that's great as well. Mr. Jemian, do you have any more comments?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Any other board members' comments? Okay, how about public comments at this point? I see Mrs. Neary raising her hand. Is Mrs. Neary, is there anybody else in the chat? Mr. DeBoer, or Mrs. Neary the first?
No, there is nobody in the chat, so Mrs. Neary can be first.
Go ahead, Mrs. Neary.
Good evening, Pat Neary, Lakeside Drive. Unfortunately, I missed the last hearing. I was unable to make it. And I was really disappointed that it wasn't on YouTube after subsequently to that meeting. I like to see what's actually happening as far as development in town. And I am very, very pleased to see that you've addressed the lighting. And that's really a big step forward. And I guess you do know that that is the movement to try to protect our night sky. And it's just wonderful that you've been so willing. I did notice that Mr. Richards mentioned a 5,000 Kelvin, and then the other gentleman mentioned 3,000. So I hope it's the 3,000 that you're working with, 3,000 or less. And that's really a great thing. I'm not sure if anyone had brought up motion activated lights, as we were able to accomplish down on Perkins Avenue with a previous facility, because motion activated is much better than having even a low light on all night. So I wish you would consider that. I'm an environmentalist, so I would also like to encourage you to make sure you use Northeast native trees in those plantings. There are so many problems with vegetation that is not native in our area. You know, it just takes over and it's a problem. So if you would consider that, I don't know what your planting design is, but you can substitute any Northeast native trees, and that would make your project probably much better than it would have been. And your cooperation is certainly appreciated. Thank you for listening.
And I'd just say that, you know, it's very generous of the developer to work with us on all this stuff, because some of these things we don't have clear regulations for yet. But Mr. Jemian has been one of the ones working with us on the zoning, as well as the rest of the board, that going forward there will be a clearing requirement and or a formula, so to speak, of how to contribute to either a tree board or a tree fund. And there's some other lighting criteria. So I'm very grateful that the developers want to work with us on this, and I'm glad we have them, you know, before us and willing to work with us. But just so everybody knows, there'll be a more, hopefully, as we move forward with this new zoning, there's a clearer there's clearer guidance on what needs to be done in terms of lighting and dark sky lighting and tree planting and or tree mitigation. So just I've heard that question around town lately, like, why are we doing the tree thing? Why are we doing the lighting thing? And it's really in motion to be done for all future projects, I would say. Is that correct, Mrs. DeBoer?
Yes, that's correct.
Are there any other, Mrs.
Yeah.
Mary,
Yes,
you-
Marilee Kenny Hunt would like to speak.
I'm probably just repeating what Mr. Driscoll just said, but since my name was already in the chat, I'll just do it very quickly. I really think it's important to have a formula, and I'm grateful for the company's willingness to make what seems to be a generous donation. But frankly, we just don't know if it's generous or not with the amount of trees that are being taken down and the carbon sequestration that we will use and the climate impact that it will have on Bridgewater. So I'm really glad that we'll have $20,000 to plant some more trees around town. But I do encourage the planning board to come up with a formula that we can use so all things are equitable whenever any of these projects come up, and we know what a tree is worth with its carbon sequestration and what it'll take to replace it in town. And that's it. I think Pat pretty much said it all, but one more time.
And Mrs. Hunt, I think that's, I don't have it in front of me, but, and I know Mr. Jemian was the one that commented on it in the workshops with Attorney Bobrowski, but I believe there is language in there specifically for trees and mitigation, and I believe there is language in there for downlighting and night sky lighting. So I don't have it in front of me, but I know it's been addressed. Any other public comment? Mrs. Neri, your hand was up and now it's gone. Are you all set?
I think she was just cheering.
Okay. Do we have any other public comment?
There's nobody in the chat at this time.
So one quick question I had, Mr. Tanzi, you mentioned the sewer and there's only a 4-inch line out there at this point, and there's the pump station. Is the pump station across that fireworks circle?
Yeah, the pump station is, yeah, right, roughly pretty much in front of the building, probably towards the, closer towards the south side of the building. And it'll come out of, there's a couple of discharge points out of the building that go into sewer manholes and run in the front parking lot to the pump station, and then the pump station sends it underneath Bedford Street to the 4-inch force main that's on the other side of Bedford Street.
Okay, and I've heard from other business owners further south that, and this doesn't have anything to do with the developer, I guess, but just for future commercial development in that area, it seems like the capacity is limited and cut off at that point. Do you know if the town has any plans to extend that so we can expand the commercial development down the South Business District, or is that not even on the radar at this point?
I don't know where that really stands. The last I spoke with the superintendent of the sewer, he seemed to believe that force main had plenty of capacity in it, that there wasn't a lot of pressure in it. So if it had to be extended, I don't see that there being much of an issue with that.
Okay. All right. Any other board comment, public comment?
Dr. Hunt has his hand raised.
Mrs. Grano? I'm sorry, Mrs. Grano, were you raising your hand?
Yeah,
Right.
just one comment on the trees. No Bradford pear trees. I guess they're very invasive. And I know in the past, in developments over the years, Bradford pear trees have been mentioned, but I've seen a lot of writings on them now.
I don't have the full set of plans in front of me now, but do we have the landscape plan that you submitted?
We do in the office, and I don't have one with me.
I don't know if the applicant can
Oh.
pull up quickly, just to confirm what types of trees there are along the street. I have a full set of plans I can grab.
And Mr. Driscoll, did you hear me say that Dr. Hunt had his hand raised?
The shade trees that they're proposing are tulip trees, red maples, seedless sweet gums, and Greenspire Lindens. I mean, I'm not gonna get into the technical,
Okay.
because I can't pronounce them.
Yeah.
And as far as ornamental, the ornamental trees are Eastern Red Bud, European Hornbeam, and a Colomera Sergeant cherry tree and a river birch.
Great, okay. Dr. Hunt, did you have your hand raised?
Yes, I do. I just had a question on this conversation a minute ago about drainage off the roofs.
We know who you are, but could you state your name and address for the record?
Oh,
please?
I'm sorry, Carlton Hunt, Austin Street. I apologies. Is the street runoff going into the sewer system as a combined sewer overflow type situation? Or are the two separated totally? Because it's not appropriate to put street runoff into a sewer system.
There's no street runoff going, there's no parking lot runoff going into the sewer system.
Thank you.
I mean, that's a technical question that I should have given to Mr. Tanzi, so you confirm that?
Yes, yeah. They're two separate systems. All runoff is going into a stormwater collection system where it will be mitigated and treated. No stormwater is going to go into the sanitary sewer system.
I can't hear Pat.
Hey, you're on mute.
I'm muted, I'm sorry. So if there's no further discussion, are there any public or public members on or board members that would like to ask questions before we consider a motion to close the public hearing?
No additional public comment that I can see at this time.
Does anybody on the board want to make a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
By Mr. Jemian, do we have a second?
Second,
By Mr. Geller? Any discussion? Mr. Garino?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald? Mr. McDonald?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I was muted. Yes.
Mr. Geller?
yes,
Mr. Jemian?
Yes,
Let me yes. Okay, thank you. All right, so just start deliberation on this project. Do we want to discuss it? Do we want to make a motion? I know we talked about a couple, Mr. Tanzi made a recommended condition about something regarding 241. Could you explain that, Mr. Tanzi?
Yeah, there's I mentioned the NIPD's permits, for the erosion control. It's a general construction permit. It's BMP standard 8 that they are required to get their permit and prepare what's called a SWIP plan, which is a stormwater pollution prevention plan. And I figured that could be made as a condition of approval. You also had mentioned the funding of the trees also being a condition of approval, and also the design of the pump station, getting the calcs to the town could also be a condition of approval. And one other thing that I did request that they get is once they get their curb cut approval from the state, I'd like to see that just to make sure that that curb cut plan matches what they've proposed on their site plan. So there's those features. I guess that there's 4 altogether. There'd be the SWIP plan, the, the pump station calcs, the curb cut plan from Mass Highway, that'd be 3. And then I guess the 4th would be the receiving the funds for cutting the trees.
Can I just ask for clarification on what the SWIP condition is? We have a standard condition that requires that they provide us a copy of the SWIP. Is there something additional that you want them to do?
No, that would cover it.
Okay.
That'd cover it fine.
All right, so Mr. Tansey just did all the work for us outlining the conditions, so that's nice.
So I didn't.
No, it's good. There's an
Right,
assistant,
Mr.
there's an assistant planner job open, I guess, too. So it's not an engineer. Any more feedback, any additional conditions, standard conditions, comments, questions, what do we want to do?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to add another condition.
Sure, Mr. Geller.
I know that we talked about dumpster locations and the applicant had said that most of the dumpsters are put at the loading dock and most of them are a compactor. I would ask that if they get a tenant that does not need a compactor and is just going to put a small 3 or 6 yard dumpster in a parking space, that dumpster gets fenced off.
It's required to be fenced off under our ordinance, but we can certainly condition that.
It's good to condition it though, too, so. Thank you, Mr. Geller. Any other proposed conditions? Mr. Jimmy, I lost you. You still on?
Who are you asking for?
Mr. Jemian, did he disappear or is he?
No, he's here.
Oh,
I'm here.
And you wanted to modify that tree donation prior to tree clearing?
Yes, I was going to add that the $20,000 be posited with the town prior to cutting any trees down.
Okay.
Which they agreed to.
Any other proposed conditions? Okay. Do we need to restate all those, or could we take a motion with the standard conditions and the conditions discussed? Is that adequate, Ms.
I've written them down. You're all set.
Is it all right? This is Jeff Checkaway. Can I make one comment or? Is
Sure.
that allowed? I just, and I think we're certainly agreeable as the applicant to all those conditions. I did just want to, talk about timeline on the information on the lift station, the pump station. I was wondering if that could be something that's, required for a certificate of occupancy. Oh, sorry, hold on.
So, Mr. Tansey, would you be comfortable with that? As we can't.
Sorry about that. I lost my earpiece battery died. No, I was wondering if we could have the requirement or the condition based on the lift station to be tied to the certificate of occupancy rather than building permit, because we may start construction prior to knowing who the end user is, and we'd like to design that lift station at a point where we can based on the end user if the timeline works, I guess.
Are you okay with that, Mr. Tansey?
Yeah, it does make some sense. My thought was what happens if one end user moves out of one of the units, and then an end user that requires more water and produces more wastewater moves in. I guess I would be comfortable with that.
I can offer another suggestion too, is typically, if this is truly a warehouse use like we've talked about, and we're within the parameters we've discussed in the past as far as volume, typically if you get some type of user in the future that might have some manufacturing or other type of heavy water use, you'd be changing the not occupancy, but you'd be changing the use, and therefore you'd be subject to further building department approval, which you could, I'd imagine, ask for it at that point. for the second tenant to get occupancy.
Yeah, I suppose that's reasonable. It's up to the board.
Can I ask Mr. Solari, are you on this? Mr. Solari, do you have any objection to that?
I don't, and that was exactly right. When any major change of use is required to be looked at. So, anything that went in there that would increase, like you said, parking, bathrooms, there's many changes that would be anticipated if it went from a warehouse use to something else, based on all our regs. So that's exactly what would happen.
So Mr. Tanzi and Mr. Solari, are we in agreement that occupancy is okay for the sewer accounts?
I have no
Yes.
issue.
Okay. All right, we have those conditions. Would anybody like to add additional conditions, have further discussion, or make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the project as presented with our standard condition and the previous stated added conditions for approval.
And could you summarize those additional conditions just for the record, Mrs. DeVogan?
Sorry, yes. That upon the design of the pump station, the calculations for that will be sent to the town prior to occupancy permit. Once the curb cut approval is obtained from Mass DOT, a copy of that plan will be provided to the town engineer for review. $20,000 gift for the planting of trees in the town of Bridgewater will be provided to the town prior to the cutting of any trees on site. And if a dumpster is to be used on site, it will be fenced.
Second,
I had a fifth, but that Swift we kicked out, correct?
I didn't include that because it's a part of our standard conditions.
Okay. And that's a second by Mr. Jimmy.
right,
Any board discussion? Mr. Geller,
Yes.
Mrs. Garino,
Yes,
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy,
yes.
and I'm a yes. So thank you very much and good luck with your project.
Great. Thank you all. Very much appreciated. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thanks.
I'll open the public hearing for 86 Spring Street in 1 second. I just want to get to where we need to be. Okay, so
I have the legal ad I just shared.
is it, I'm in the packet on page,
I don't think the legal ad, I don't think I put it in the packet.
okay, all right, so you just shared that.
I just shared it on my screen.
Could you enlarge that so I can read? I mean, it's still small for me. Unless you want to read it. All right. So the next public hearing that we have is 86 Spring Street. This is an application by 86 Spring Street, 86 Spring Street Revocable Trust. This is a special permit under section 19, mixed uses. This is a public hearing notice by the Bridgewater Planning Board. On Wednesday, March 16th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m., the Bridgewater Planning Board will be conducting a public hearing via Zoom on an application by 86 Spring Street Revocable Trust for a special permit under section 19, mixed uses in the CBD of the Bridgewater zoning bylaws on property located at 86 Spring Street, map 21, lot 168. The project proposes to construct 4 additional apartment units over the existing commercial space and the modification of a site plan to designate parking spaces and fence the trash area. The plans were provided by Michael J. Koska Associates, Bridgewater, Mass, and dated February 2nd, 2022, and are on file with the Community and Economic Development Office. All interested persons are encouraged to attend. This was posted by the Bridgewater Planning Board and was in the Enterprise on March 2nd, 2022 and March 9th, 2022. So again, we'll follow the same format with the special permit and public hearing process. I'll open the public hearing for 86 Spring Street now, since we've read that public hearing notice. The only correspondence I believe we received, other than the application and the presentation and the plans by the applicant, was a review by Mrs. DeBobrian. I don't know if we want to walk through that first, or if we want to have the applicant present first. Would you like to go through your?
You did get a letter from the town engineer.
Is that in the packet? I have it right here.
I thought I put it in the packet. Let me just.
Yeah, I saw it. Hold on one second.
Yeah, it's in the packet. I can pull it up if you want.
Okay, we received the green cards, correct?
You did, yes. Mr. Morris, did you want to share your screen and do the presentation, or did you want me to share my screen with the presentation?
Can I share my screen?
You absolutely can. I can make you a co-host.
Okay.
You should be all set to share.
Okay, so we did, so I apologize. We did receive a technical review from Mr. Tanzi, dated February 28th, 2022. And we did receive a staff review by Mrs. Jennifer DeBobrian in our packet.
Yes.
So do we want to walk through these first, or Mrs. DeBobrian?
Your protocol is to have the applicant do a presentation, so I think you should keep with that protocol.
Yep. All right. Okay. So, Mr. Morris, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Okay. We're here tonight looking for a special permit. What we're looking at is simply an addition over the rear part of the building. Many of you are probably familiar that BTV and Comcast used to be located in this section right here. And this is adding above that section only. Looking at the building, 86 Spring Street was the site of the old Julio's. If you're familiar with that. This was a pre-existing building at the time it was bought back in 2012. There was a restaurant here. There were 2 apartments upstairs already, and downstairs was part of an apartment connected upstairs. The downstairs was on many different levels. What we did is we came in here and we put in Bridgewater Bagel with the handicap ramp coming in here. And now we have Lacerda Photography, which is in the other section. So 100% of everything that's facing Spring Street is a business. The rear of the 2 businesses, which you can't see, but it's hidden in the middle section of the building, was a part of the building that was at 4 different levels. On the left-hand side, there's only 4.5 or 5 feet to get out of the place, and on the right-hand side had limited area into the parking lot. We applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals and received a variance to put an apartment in that area, and that was granted, and that was built about 10 years ago. The variance stated that the hardship ran with the land, and based on the location of the structure, it inhibited ADA compliance for public use. It also found that it was in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the bylaw in the immediate property, which is over here. The Brianna's also has first floor apartment in the back right there, if you can see it in the picture. It has been exercised. Everything was remodeled. All the occupancy permits were obtained. I will tell you that the building is fully sprinkled. There is our output right there on the sprinklers, and it's fully alarmed for the fire department. This is the back section of the building. This is where Comcast and BTV was. If you're familiar with the old BTV studio, this was raised right here in order to accommodate the lights in the filming when they were in there filming shows. And this little jut out was just for them to store their equipment. As part of this addition, this little piece will be taken off so that it's flush, and this little piece will be taken off as well. This is currently used as my office, Morris Real Estate. Me and Charlie are here tonight, myself and Charles Macy are in the office right about where my pointer is. I'm going to skip down to the last slide for 1 second. This is a site plan. This is Brianna's next door. It is not part of our property, but at one time was owned by the same people, so it's shown on the same plan. This is the building that we're talking about. The entire front section of this is unchanged. Nothing has changed in this presentation. There will be an addition over this back section right here. The dotted line indicates the overhang of the building. The parking spaces are here already. The drainage is already in place. There is no site work being proposed at all as part of this presentation. I'm going to jump back up to, in line with this, with your bylaw, you call for up to 18 units per acre in the central business district. This is almost an acre of land, just shy. It would allow 17 units. Currently, we have 3. We're proposing 4 for a total of 7. So it's only for 41% of the allowed units. We're not trying to maximize out the use. We're just trying to add to an area that seems to make sense. A percentage of commercial, your bylaw states it must provide the commercial development on the first floor of each building, or the commercial development shall equal 30% of the gross floor area of the project. In all instances, the first floor of any street building shall be commercial. So you can see from our building that all of the street facing units are 100% commercial. And as a supplement to what I put in there, the calculation comes out to 35.98% commercial. Again, from looking up at this one, you can see that there's no units above this section at all. So that's where part of that calculation comes from. The design architecture of what we're doing here, the first floor remains exactly the same. Second floor, we're adding 22 windows on each side. We're also adding these trim pieces as they come around to establish that. We're going to put on a charcoal black architectural shingle roof. Currently, the building, as you probably can see, has a flat roof like most of the stuff in the area. But we're going to bring this up. So that was something the board seemed to want in their bylaw. The windows are going to be 4/4 double hung windows. The siding will match the first floor gray vinyl siding. We have 5,000 square feet of vinyl siding. So we thought that matching that in the back would be the best for what's there. That's the west elevation, which is the side that faces BTV. And again, without repeating myself, we're doing the same thing, 22 windows, the black roof, the gray vinyl siding. We tried to keep with what is in the area. These are pictures of every house in Spring Street. You have a mixture of mostly multifamily homes, other than BTV that's next door to us, and Brianna's here, which is a mixed use with the apartment down here, and a mixture of vinyl siding with a little bit of brick out in here. But these are side views of other ones that are on Spring Street to see what multiple 3 stories would look like with that. We're adding the pitched roof to it that's not here already. In summary, Spring Street, I walked up and down, there are 16 buildings with vinyl siding. There are 3 buildings with asbestos siding. As you all know, asbestos siding, they don't like to remove, so the only thing you really can do is cover that with vinyl. So we expect that 19 of the buildings will be vinyl sided. There's 1 space metal building, which is the town-owned BTV next to us. There's 2 wood siding buildings well down the street, and there's 1 composite or mixed medium. So we felt that the continuation of vinyl with the accent pieces and little overhangs would meet or exceed the community standard. The area has 3-story buildings with flat roofs, which is not desired in your bylaw. So we did add a 10-pitch roof with asphalt shingles. And generally, they're just flat side with limited windows, as you saw from the pictures. We have the overhang that creates some depth, 44 additional windows. The accent pieces all meet or exceed the community standard. Last but not least, that is the site plan. On the site plan, we have 10 spaces that had been added. There's 5 behind the building right here, and then there's 5 right here. Part of it was turning this parking area to do that. There are 2 existing handicap spaces. There's the one right here next to the door with a loading area. There is one right here that also has a loading area. Both of them already have signage here. This is where the trash bin is located. It's been there for 10 years, but it is not fenced. So we are proposing as part of this to put a fence around that. And with that, I think I'll answer any questions the board might have instead of going on too much for you.
Okay, so we did receive a staff report from Mrs. DeBoer, and we did receive somewhat of a technical review from Mr. Tansey. So before we get into that, just Mrs. DeBoer and Mr. Morris, I don't know if you can answer these, but you know, we have requirements in the central business district to mixed-use projects. Did we receive a floor plan to show the configuration of the existing units and how many bedrooms are in those and whatnot?
I have not received that.
Do you have, how many bedrooms are in those other 3 units, Mr. Morris?
The other 3 were all pre-existing. We thought, well, 2 of them were pre-existing. There were 2 3-bedrooms and 1, actually all 3 are 3 bedrooms. Let me think about that for a second.
So upon
front one is 2, second one is 2, and then a 3-bedroom. 2, 2, and 3.
which one is the 3rd bedroom? Is that on the 1st floor or the 2nd floor?
Yes, it is. Yeah, there's the one that was created by the variance.
So, and I think the other thing, we asked for a balance, Mrs. DeBoer, in 1 and 2 bedrooms
That's correct.
Mr. Morris, how about front elevations? Did you provide it? I mean, that gable end is facing Spring Street, but there's no front elevations for that?
I had them do 3 sides on the elevation, the front, the thing, and the back of the building. The problem with the front elevation is you're coming up over an existing building that would be blocked out in certain things. I certainly can have him pop that up if you want to.
Well, I guess how do we determine what it looks like from the street view?
Well, it's going to look like it looks right here. The addition in the back doesn't start, if I can, I just got to flip to a plan for a second.
But there's a gable end with the windows facing Spring Street, correct?
There's a gable end that's on Spring Street, but it doesn't start till 70 feet back into the building. You're going to see the top. You're going to see the top gable end, and it's essentially just a gable end of the building with the gable peak. It would look very similar to the back elevation. It's just on you got all this building here in front of. Oh, I'm looking at my screen, not yours. Sorry. You have all that building in the front that blocks most of. You're just going to see the top of a gable end from the street. I'm happy to give you an extra one if that's what you'd like. I don't.
Well, I'm just looking at the requirements. And I think Mrs. DeVogrian's memo to us outlines, there's a lot of things missing. You know,
I didn't receive her memo, so I didn't. If we could go over, I'm more than I don't have her memo. I had the memo from the engineering department, but nothing else. I'm happy to provide any information. I didn't realize I was waiting.
So just look, I mean, just looking at what's submitted, I mean, so I think we need the floor plans for the existing building. Units greater than 2 bedrooms aren't allowed. I think you read it yourself, the first floor of the street facing building.
Yeah.
So that entire building would want, I mean, typically in the past, we've asked for that whole thing to be commercial. And I just, you know, I worry about, you know, the 30% is really designed if you have a multi-building project. So.
Can I interrupt for 1 second?
Sure.
I don't see the 30% saying multi-building project in your bylaw.
It says street facing building, not street facing side. If you read the
Well, every building in a project faces a street technically.
Well, all right.
But now you're interpreting that it's the closest building maybe, but we're simply putting an addition over the back of the building. And I don't really get, when we came in here and we came to the Zoning Board of Appeals 10 years ago, there was a ratty falling down building. They wanted someone to spend $300,000 or $400,000 bringing up to code. They realized that nobody could use the middle of the building because it was at 4 different levels. There was no place of getting in or out. And they granted us a variance that runs with the property. Variances go over special permits because they're granted for the land and how that sets. And right in their decision, it says that it goes with the land. So I don't understand why we're getting into a discussion of redesigning or re-talking about the whole front of a pre-existing building. It's not.
Well, I mean, from my purview, it's, you know, the mixed use is to enhance and to beautify and to create vibrancy downtown. And I think what we're trying to do is, you know, we have these requirements in section 19, like a landscape plan, like a parking lot plan. You know, we ask for commercial on the first floor in its entirety. We do say that, you know, 30% of the project has to be commercial or the first floor of the street facing building, the entire building. So I just think, to be consistent personally with all the projects that we've had come before us recently, I have no problem with the additional units. It's just, we don't require, you know, in the past, we haven't allowed 3 bedrooms because they're not allowed. In the past, we asked for first floor commercial to be removed. In the past, you know, we asked for architectural plans. In the past, we asked for natural materials. So I think, you know, I think that personally, I don't have any problem with the additional units. It's just, I'd really like to see the building enhanced. If you look at that elevation, there's 2 little windows for all that commercial space on the first floor. And I think it's an easy fix. I mean, if we don't allow 3-bedroom units and you have one of those on the first floor,
well, again, we're applying for an addition to a building. We have Bridgewater Bagel in the front. They already rent it on a lease. I can't go in there and redesign theirs. I have a photography studio on the right-hand side who doesn't want additional windows. He's taking pictures and doesn't want the actual light coming in from the outdoors. I can't get to the center of the building for any commercial use. That's why there was a variance created. And what we're doing is we're now treating this like it's a brand new application for a building that's never been built. We have an existing building that's wishing to add something to the community, which is some additional apartments. We didn't try to max out. We could ask for, under your bylaw, 14 additional units. We're asking for 4. We're trying to use what we have for parking areas, for something that will look nice in the center of town. If you want something for different, could I share my screen again for 1 second?
So Mr. Do we have any other board comments? I know we got a memo from Mrs. DeVore, so I want to go over that.
Okay.
I mean, to me, we do allow mixed use downtown as of right, but that's only for 2 additional units above an existing building. So this, I mean, I disagree that this is not a new application. I mean, the only way to justify it to get those additional units is through a special permit process. And we have requirements for that special permit, whether it's a new building or an existing building. So personally, that's where I disagree, but. Any other board questions or comments? Mr. DeBovan, would you like to go through your memo or put your memo up?
Sure, you went through most of it already, but that's okay. First, I just would note that in section 19.02 of the mixed use section, it states that no special permit under section 19 shall be granted unless the planning board finds that, and it lists 5 things that the planning board has to find in order for the special permit to be granted. So the board should keep that in mind when considering these special permits. I'm just pulling up my comments. 1 second. Okay. So I found it a little difficult to review the plan submitted because it was a as-built plan for work that had already commenced and finished, and not a site plan as we know it that we typically see with these projects. I feel that a site plan should actually be submitted that is for this project, that shows, which is the new parking, and the traffic circulation patterns, one that shows the appropriate zoning table so that we can calculate the correct parking. We can calculate the new required parking, but we also have to make sure that they have the appropriate parking for the commercial uses as well. So all of that stuff has to be put on the plan. No lighting plan was submitted, no landscape plan was submitted, and no traffic assessment or impact study was submitted. He did note that he requested a waiver. However, those can't be granted as waivers. That would be variance from the ZBA since this is a zoning item. So those are the main things that I saw that were needed, including the floor plans that you already mentioned. And then I would just note that some of the items that the board can and should address, which you've already mentioned, the issue with the commercial on the first floor, it was granted as a variance. This is a special permit. The board can decide how they want to proceed. It's up to the board how they want to proceed. You've already talked about a little bit about the architectural plans, not enhancing the character of the downtown, which is one of the reasons we have this zoning in the first place. The landscape plan wasn't stamped. There is no landscape plan, and it isn't stamped by an RLA. That is required. This says no dumpster area is shown, and I apologize, I did not see that location. Again, these plans were hard to read with all the lines and everything on them, so I did just relook at that so I can remove that comment. No lighting plan was submitted, and then the traffic information. So those are like my main comments. But without all that information, it's hard for me to make any additional actual comments on this project. I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Mr. Tanzi, can you give an update? And I guess I'm confused as to why did the stormwater design and parking lot go to Concom and not to us, and does it meet the requirements? I mean, I know it's a redevelopment, but can you review that for
Yeah.
function and for compliance, or can you not?
I could. I'd have to get the design plan of the stormwater management system and review it. I don't know whether that system was reviewed or not. When I received this package, I understood that they got a order of conditions, and my understanding was that it was reviewed by conservation, the stormwater management system, but that may or may not be the case. I'll have to contact the conservation agent and see what was approved and why it was approved. So all that was constructed. So I didn't review the stormwater management element of that project. I looked at what we had out there for parking originally before the parking lot improvements were made. There was 14 spaces out there originally. They are adding the 2 units above, and that required an additional 5 parking spaces. They reconfigured the parking so that it would have an additional 10. But the 14 spaces didn't appear that that was met the zoning requirement, the current zoning requirements for parking as they stand now. But that might have been part of the variance, or maybe it was grandfathered. It's hard to say. But they do need 5 spaces for the 2 residential apartments upstairs, and they've expanded the parking lot to 10 spaces. Originally, it was difficult to understand exactly what the building was doing as far as overhangs and whatnot, and whether or not encroachments were made. So they did resubmit a revised plan that did show the proposed addition limits, and the plan shows that it is not encroaching on the other side of the abutting lot line. Water and sewer didn't have any real issues with connecting into the existing system, except that they brought it to our attention that they're going to have to pay some connection fees, and it's going to be $10,400 for 8 bedrooms. So yeah, there's a total of 4 units. There's 2 stacked on top of each other and 2 side by side. So I think that's pretty much everything.
And I think we all want to see mixed use expanded downtown. And like I said, I personally have no problem with the additional units. I want to see what it looks like from the Spring Street side. I want our requirements met. I mean, every project that we've had come before us, we've been very strict about the commercial requirement on the entire first floor. We just recently had a variance that we modified on Broad Street. So, I mean, it's a special permit, and the whole idea is to enhance the area. We asked for natural materials on the building. We asked for a landscape plan. So we asked for a number of things in order to obtain a special permit. So.
Could I interject for a moment?
Sure, sir.
Yeah. Could I share my screen possibly?
Yeah, you still have the capabilities to share.
I do.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm sorry. I found it. I haven't used this before. Okay. A few things. On the drainage and expanding here, we did test pits out here. They were witnessed by Azua Tenero. We did a stormwater management plan that was filed with the conservation. All of the calculations were reviewed by Azu and approved as part of the conservation filing. Back here is roof drains that were installed, and the corners are in here for that. When it comes to this application before you, you've asked for things like landscape, a landscape plan. This is the concrete sidewalk. This is concrete sidewalk with pavement up to the side of it. This is pavement all here. This is an already landscaped thing for the last 12 years. This is a big open space of about 40% of the lot, which is a maintained lawn in the area. This was a bioretention area with 31 plants that had to be chosen from the specific rain garden thing of the DEP. We're not proposing any site work under this application. We're not proposing any landscape. There's no place to put landscaping, as you can see from the plan. Now, on the street, when you're saying you'd like some natural things, Mr. Macy here with me. Mr. Macy did this project in East Bridgewater, and what he did is he took every other section and went with the gray vinyl siding. Then he did the shake shingles that are in here. That has a nice look to it. He has just suggested to me that if on this building design here, you could take that and do that into every other section going there. And then on the front.
Mr. Morris, could I interrupt you for a minute?
Sure.
Could you go back to that slide that you were just on?
This one?
No, right. So I'm looking at this elevation plan, right?
Yeah.
So to the ground floor, which is commercial, or should be commercial, there's
Yes.
really no windows there. I mean, personally, I think there should be big windows there. It should be commercial.
The problem that you have, if I can interrupt you, Pat, is that when you look at this, see this area with no windows? This is a pre-existing building. Those are where the bathrooms are. And this is on slab. So I can't move the bathrooms and I can't put big windows into the bathrooms.
All right, well, I mean, if
This is where the heating system is.
we're looking at this as a new project. So that, I mean, I guess that's, I mean, I think you should have to reconstruct and reconfigure and improve the first floor, but that's my opinion. But if looking at this elevation though, this elevation to me looks like it goes all the way to Spring Street. So what you're telling me is the first floor of this building continues to the right.
This right here is the front of the building right here. This here is only this back section. This
But do you see, I mean,
is
how do
over
you-
the top of this.
I think we need the whole building shown.
This is that whole front building, none of which is changing.
You're
This
going,
is just
you're
that
going,
back
you're
section.
going a floor higher than that front building though, right?
Yes, yep. Mr. Macy has suggested that we could do this on every other thing, and then in the front of the building, could also put this for the entire front of the building, those shake shingles, as an improvement to the front of the building. The difficulty I have as you're talking, these are on long-term leases. Bridgewater Bagel is here. I can't throw them out and redesign that. The photography studio is here. I can't throw them out now that they've already built out their units and redesign that.
This is what we want Bridgewater businesses.
What was it?
And this is what we want our businesses in Bridgewater.
Yeah, and then we got businesses into a vacant building and put $300,000 or $400,000 into this to make it a nice looking building. And would like to, if all you're looking for is an elevation from here, that way back in here, if you want to see the peak and have him do something, but we can't redesign a building that's already leased out. And this already has bathrooms. I can't redesign those. Would you prefer us to
I mean,
put another building? Is that what you're asking us to do?
I think we're not trying to design the project tonight. So, I mean, if you want to there's a number of requirements we need. So why don't you get those to us? And I
Well,
think
let
that's.
me ask you a question. I turned in an 11-page architectural plan. The only thing missing on it has the floor plans of everything that's being done. It has structural things, it has the whole drawing. It's 11 pages long. The only thing that's missing from it.
I think we need the existing floor plans as well. I mean, personally, I mean, and I'll just say this now so we don't, get to the end. I'd be in favor of it, but the whole first floor has to be commercial. I mean, that's just being consistent how we've done in the past.
But I can't do that. I can't meet ADA requirements with the stuff that's in here. It's already built and it's already an exercised variance. Deference is given to variances over special permits, and McClellan studied a number of where they've looked at when you have a variance. Look at how close I am to the sideline. I can't get a handicap ramp out here. I'd be over the property line. I start to come out into here and I'm out into the taken away parking.
Again, I don't want to design the project tonight. I think we have a bunch of requirements we still need, so.
But there was a reason why the variance was granted. The reason why the variance was granted was because of the ADA requirements there. I'd also point out that our parking, when we started, there were 11 spaces right across the street here, which meant there were 25 spaces that people used on coming in here. Your bylaw calls for people being able to share them. We added 10 spaces, which is double what we needed to do. And we only asked for 4 out of a possible 14 units to the building. We're trying to keep something in scale. If you look at the neighborhood, you were just saying it's not in scale with the neighborhood.
Well, I mean, again, I'm not going to design the project, but you don't have the parking for 14 more units.
What was that?
You don't have the parking on that site for 14 more units.
Oh, we definitely have it for another 4 units if we wanted to.
Correct. I'm not going to design the project.
I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to work with what we have here. Other than a front elevator, I'm just asking for the information you're looking for. Other than a front elevation.
We can have Mrs. Gable provide us with a staff memo.
But she didn't provide me with one, so I don't know.
We can have her expand upon that after tonight and get everything we need from you.
Okay, I'm happy to give you the floor plan from when we went to the ZBA. We already have that on file, but I'm happy to forward that to you. And if you want the engineer to give us an elevation, I can.
I'm not trying to get you. We have special permit criteria that we hold everybody else to, and we're just trying to hold you to the same criteria. That's all.
I don't talk about other people's projects, so I won't go down that road. But I'm just trying to get a list of what you would like from us. From what I understand, we have a floor plan that we submitted when we built this, so I'm happy to give that to you. That's already down at the building department, but I'm happy to give you another copy of that. And you want a front elevation where he takes he takes into account.
I think instead of trying to figure, I think we'll have Mrs. DeBoer forward you everything that we need. So I think that's probably the best thing to do.
Well, I was looking on the list that she had put up there. I didn't see what else we were missing, and I just wanted to make
so
sure
you
that-
need, it's required, a landscape plan by a registered landscape architect is required under the bylaws. So if you're not
If
willing
we're-
to provide one, then you need to get a variance from the ZBA.
There's landscape requirements in the parking lot as well. So a certain percentage of the parking lot has to be vegetated. Just because it's existing doesn't mean we have to accept it. This is a brand new special permit application.
And you've been consistent on that with other properties?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay, I just asked you to get me the list. We will follow your request of what you want. Planning board requirements can't be waived by the planning board. They have to go to the ZBA. Is that?
If they're part of the zoning ordinance or zoning bylaw, they do have to get a variance from the ZBA, and because these are all.
So on landscape plans, you've required other applicants to go to the ZBA to get a waiver, or for or for a traffic studies on pre-existing buildings, you've required other people to go to the ZBA?
If
Well,
they've requested it,
So
not to provide it.
So there were traffic studies on the pre-existing buildings, all had traffic studies?
anything that was done as a special permit, yes.
They had traffic studies. Okay, I'm just trying to understand for the record so I'll get you the information that you request. I disagree with your position, but I am open to, as I said, I'm not asking you to design the project. We are coming in with something that every building on Spring Street has vinyl siding. If you don't want.
Right, but Mr. Morris, I think we can all agree that Spring Street is not what we want the town to look like. So we're trying to enhance, the mixed use ordinance was designed to enhance downtown, to provide for nicer materials, to provide for commercial on the first floor and residential on the second floor. I don't think anybody has a problem, or at least I shouldn't speak for everybody. I don't have a problem with the additional units. It's just we require certain things and you don't want to provide them. And we've always asked
I'm happy to provide it.
every application that's been before us, we've pushed and pushed and pushed for commercial on the first floor. And I think if you read that ordinance, you'll see that it says for a street facing building, or the street fronting building, I should say. So I disagree with the interpretation.
I agree with Pat on that. I'm not willing to waive that requirement. We've always been firm with that. We need to continue to be firm with that.
I just want to be clear because I put on the page here. That's your bylaw, my interpretation. Must provide the commercial development of the first floor of each building, or the commercial development shall equal 30% of the gross floor area of the project.
Right. Read the next line. In all instances, the first floor of any street facing building shall be commercial.
But all buildings in a project are considered to be street facing. They have a street facing side of every building in every project. Okay, I know I'm going down the wrong track on this one. So what I will do is I'll ask you to provide me the list of everything that you want. I will provide everything.
I think we also require 60% of the commercial, area, street facing should be, glazed. So I don't know if we require it on that side, but we certainly need more windows if that's all commercial on that side as well.
It's a pre-existing building. You're pre-existing building with pre-existing tenants, and your position is that I'm supposed to, do I displace my tenants? Do I change their businesses? I don't know what
Mr. Morris, you're the one proposing the renovation. How you handle that renovation is up to you. I mean, if you have to vacate the building to do your renovation or work around tenants, that's how you handle that's up to you. So any other board comments at this point?
I just have one quick question. The drawing of the building in the back, it shows 2 sets of windows above the first floor. It's not a 3-story building, is it?
Yes, it is.
It is 3 stories.
Correct.
So it's commercial on the first floor, and
Yep.
then two separate floors for apartments, correct?
Correct. There's
I just
4
wanted to
apartments,
clarify that.
2 bedrooms on each apartment.
Okay, thank you.
So
Just like on both sides of us are 3-story. As a matter of fact, other than BTV and Brianna's, on the 4 surrounding things are 3-story buildings with apartments going straight up there. So it's very much in the same as what everything in the neighborhood is.
Okay.
It's not going to look out of place.
For some reason or other, I thought I saw 2 stories someplace.
Well, it's because there's no windows on the first floor, so.
No, I know that.
Any other questions from the board or comments? How about public comment at this time? Anybody from the public wish to speak?
See anything in the chat, and nobody has their hand raised that I can see.
So, I mean, I know Mr. Morris has shown us a bunch of pictures of Spring Street, but I think that's what we're trying to improve. So, and I think we're trying to create vibrancy. I think it talks about, you know, improving in enhancing small businesses. And that's really the intent down there, and to beautify these buildings, create more commercial space, and allow for residential on the second and third floor, potentially the fourth floor. So I think we should ask Mrs. DeBobrand to work with Mr. Morris to get everything that we need, to comply with all the regulations, and to, you know, add windows in the first floor, make that whole first floor commercial. Look to redoing the entire exterior of that building with perhaps some sort of natural materials. I think the intent is to really enhance the downtown. That's why we're looking for these buildings to look nice. So, any other comments from the planning board?
Yes, please. On one that I was looking at the floor plans,
Mhm.
and it had a very large kitchen great room area,
Mhm.
and then 2 bedrooms, but in between the kitchen and the great room was a big space.
Big space. No, the kitchen and the great room is one big L-shaped area. Then
Oh,
there's
it's an L-shaped
bedroom-
area. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I
it-
didn't,
It's just one big area with 2 bedrooms on the end and then a bathroom.
okay, it's an L-shaped area. Okay, I
Well,
was
I
trying
should
to
have
figure
said
that out.
Mr. Ross, you can hear everything we're talking about, correct?
Yeah, I can hear it.
And you have been paying attention to this whole meeting, correct?
Yes.
I should have said earlier that I appoint you to this hearing because it's a special permit, and Jean is going to drop off after this meeting.
Okay.
So you've been on the whole time. I couldn't see you, so I just wanted to make sure, right?
She's been on the whole time.
And you're willing to sit in on the coming meetings, correct?
Yes.
Thank you, Astrid. I'm sorry I didn't make that clear earlier.
Okay.
So, Mr. Morris, the reason I said that was Ms. Rojas is our associate member, and Mrs. Garino is resigning after this evening. So she is going to fill Mrs. Garino's seat, at least for this special permit. And if she decides to become a regular member, she can become a regular member, but at least for this permit, she'll be a voting member.
Okay, thank you.
Any other board comments or questions? Or
Change on this building.
I would add to Jean's comment on the floor plans that, I mean, I know it's nothing at this time, but there are some indications that there may be a closet in that L shape, and that closet shouldn't be in there. It'll be considered a bedroom.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a 2-bedroom and definitely not. I'm just trying to see if I can pull that up.
On the first floor on one side, it looks like there's one drawn in that's not complete. And on the second floor on the left-hand side, there's one that's not complete. So you should revise your floor plan.
Yeah, I'll make sure it's not intended to be a bedroom. Isn't intended to have a closet there. I don't have that in front of me. Trying to see if I can pull it up somewhere.
Just when you get a chance, look at drawing A2.
Yeah, no, I now see it. And I don't see where the closet is. I can see there's a header between the kitchen.
Right. So if you look on the first floor and you look on the right-hand side, back to back where the other bedroom is, there's a partially drawn closet that looks like it was taken out. It's not fully developed.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yes, no, that was that. I'll make sure that is taken out. Thank you.
It's also
I thought that was.
There's also one on the second floor on the left side.
Yeah,
I
it's on a
see that.
few of them. You just need to review the plan. That's all.
Yeah, no, I'll make sure that that's taken out. I thought that was taken out, but I will make sure that is.
And we asked for a balance of 1 and 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms are not allowed, so just when you do your redesign.
Again, as I said, we have a difference of opinion on the existing apartment. And that's gonna have to be up to the board and the board's vote. As far as, one of the things we're gonna ask a couple of things. One is we'd be happy to have a condition that any future units would have to be 1 bedrooms. We're only using 7 of 17 that's allowed. We're not trying to build out the site to the highest and best of what can be done down here. That made sense with what's there. If the board doesn't want that, I can add another floor and put 4 1-bedroom apartments there. We have 10 additional parking spaces. So we can add 4 more 1-bedroom apartments. I really didn't want to do that. But if the board is looking for a balance and wants me to do that, I'm happy to do so. I'm just looking for direction from you on that one. If
I think you need to present us what you want to present us, and the site has to work. So if you can get more units, I want to do more units. It just, you have to meet the requirements, the landscape requirements in the parking lot. Just meet all the requirements. Commercial on the first floor. I mean, we're beating a dead horse. So
But
I think
ask what I need for landscape requirements if I am keeping the outside the same and there's already 40% open space?
There's an open space criteria, and there's
But we meet that.
there's a landscape requirement. There's a certain percentage of the paved area that has to be landscaped with islands. So it's all in section 19.
Okay, as I said, I will go through that if she provides me the list, and we'll resume the hearing and go from there, I guess.
Mr. DeVoegran, do you have a recommended date to continue this?
Your upcoming meetings are April 6th or whatever the first Wednesday of May is. I don't have that in front of me, I'm sorry. Here it is. April 6th or May 4th.
Do you think you can have all these requirements met by April 6th?
Yes, I do. I'm gonna have all the requirements that I can meet, and then I'll ask the board to take a vote on what I'm able to present. I'm not going to eliminate the first floor apartment on the variance. I will supplement my application with a affidavit from our attorney regarding variances and how they're treated in regards to special permits. I don't want to get into a legal argument. I didn't bring an attorney tonight, but I'm not changing the first floor 3-bedroom apartment. And if that's, so that obviously could be a grounds for the board voting to deny. I will meet all of your other requirements. But that's how I have people on long-term leases. I have people you want me to, in order to do something, displace or whatever. I'm happy to. The intent of that downtown bylaw is to make the downtown look better and nicer, not to get into the inside designs of units and what have you. I will come back with something that will look prettier from Spring Street, so that's an improvement there. I'll show you an elevation of what the back thing will look like from Spring Street, and I'll add some things so it looks more attractive. The landscaping is done, but I will definitely go through your bylaw to see if I'm missing anything, and I'm more than happy to add whatever I'm missing. And then I'll ask the board for a vote on what I've submitted.
Fair enough. Okay, so do we have a motion, Mr. DeVoegran? How do we look for April 6th?
Currently, you only have one item, the 925 Bedford Street, or not 925, I'm sorry, the lot 24 Bedford Street issue is the only item on your agenda.
All right, so if we don't have any more discussion, do we have a motion to move this to April 6th?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, Pat, if the applicant isn't willing to meet the commercial requirement for the first floor, why are we even going to continue it? I mean, we could just tell you what, it doesn't meet the requirement. He's not willing to make it meet the requirement. I don't think a continuation for landscaping plans is going to change that.
I mean, I agree. I will vote no if he doesn't make the whole first floor commercial, but it's up, I mean, it's up to him to decide, so.
I would like to, between now and your meeting on April 6th, be able to supplement my application with a legal opinion for you. I don't have that tonight, and I haven't had an attorney have a chance to put something together. I didn't realize, I had a long discussion with my attorney regarding that, but I didn't realize that was going to be an issue tonight, so I didn't bring something to be prepared regarding that.
Okay. And if we need to get a legal opinion from our attorney, we'll send it, we can have it sent to him as well.
Oh,
So,
sure, yeah, and I would definitely encourage that.
so do we have a motion to continue this? So I agree with you, Mr. McDonald, but if he's asking for a continuance, he could change his mind and revamp the plan. So are you okay with continuing this to April 6th?
Yeah, fine with me. I'll make the motion to continue to April 6th.
Do you have a second?
6:30.
At
Correct.
6:30.
Second,
Mr. Jimmy,
yep,
any discussion? So I'll take the roll. Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Garino,
Yes,
Mr. Jemian,
yes,
Mr. Geller,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. If I could add one last thing, if Jen could get me that list as soon as possible. I know we limited time between these, so if I could get that list of what I'm missing as soon as possible, I would greatly.
You'll have it by Friday.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, so we have board business. We have no public meetings for next week board business. We have minutes to approve for 12/1, 12/15, 1/5, and 1/19.
I read them all. I made my corrections. I don't know if there were any others that.
Did you submit any corrections to Mrs. DeBoven?
She
To
submitted them to
Nicole.
Nicole,
Were they just simply Scrivener errors, Jean,
Yep.
or were they, okay.
and they've already been changed. They've already been made. The changes have already been made.
Do we have any discussion on those minutes? Do we have a motion to approve those 4 sets of minutes of 12/1, 12/15, 1/5, and 1/19?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes, the 4 minutes,
Is this your last motion, Mrs. Garino?
my last motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Who was that? I did, Mr.
Either way,
Geller.
Michael and myself said it together.
I saw Mr. Geller light up. So Mrs. Garino made the motion, Mr. Geller second. Mr. Jemian,
yes,
Mr. Geller,
Yes.
Mrs. Garino,
Yes,
oh, Mr. McDonald, where'd you go? Up there, Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Good. So do we have any board or director reports or anything like that?
The only thing I have is the March 30th. Is that a good date for everybody for a meeting with Barrett Planning?
Is that convenient for everybody? Do we want to add another meeting this month, or do we want to wait till April?
Yeah, we can do it. We don't have to do it this month. We can wait till April if that's better for everybody.
When is our second meeting in April?
You don't have one because your normally second meeting falls on a Jewish holiday. So if you want to do a second meeting in April, we could certainly do that on a different day.
Like the 15th or something? No, the 15th is tax day for people.
And that's a Friday.
What's the 13th? Do we even know 13th?
13th, you can probably meet. I would likely have zoning board of appeals that night. But if you want to meet earlier, if you can.
What people are allowed to do, 13th or the 30th?
30th of this month is okay with me.
Anybody else?
Steve,
Works for me.
Michael,
Yeah, how long do we anticipate that one's gonna last? Just trying to figure out. the schedule.
I would say no more than like an hour or so,
And that's all.
depending on how
that
many
should-
questions you guys have.
We won't put anything else on that night, right?
Yeah, that's gonna be the only thing on that night.
And is that going to be in person or would that still be a Zoom meeting?
That one will still be Zoom. We're starting back in person the first week of April.
Yeah, so the 30th, that works fine for me then.
Okay. Astrid, are you available that night?
Yeah, that works.
And Pat, are you available?
Yeah, I'll make it work. Yeah.
So I'll schedule that with them for March 30th via Zoom.
All right, well, Gene, thank you very much for almost 10 years of being on the board, and you made great contributions, and I'm sure you're gonna, you know, I'm
You're
sure you'll be around, right? So,
Yeah, I'll be around. It's an experience.
and hopefully, you know, as a resident, you'll still continue to chime in on the master plan and stuff like that, so.
Yeah, Jane, you could always come on and just watch.
Yeah.
You have nothing else to do at night.
See. No, okay.
Do we quickly want to chat about possible CPC replacement, or you want to wait until she's actually gone?
Want to do it, or do we want to think about it and vote next meeting?
I think we should wait.
Okay.
Everybody think about it. If somebody wants to do it, let us know. Or you can let Mrs. DeBoer know privately or whatever, so.
Yeah, and they have upcoming projects. They have the mobile station. The town wants to buy that and make a park. The library's got a project going. Hanson Farm. Senior Center.
Yeah, more stuff at Styles and Hart.
Yeah, property at outside Styles and Hart. Through the Nunkatesset.
Yep.
To expand the Nunkatesset walk trailway. There's a lot of stuff coming up.
When and how often does that meet?
Once a month, the fourth Wednesday of the month.
Well, so good for people to keep in mind, and if somebody, you know, I mean, I have enough on my plate, and I think, you know, there's 4 very good people on this board, so hopefully one of you will step up and do it. And if not, we'll appoint the newest person, Astrid.
Don't worry, Astrid, I won't let him do that to you.
Position.
Okay.
But it's interesting.
All right. Any other discussion? We'll miss you, Gene, so good luck.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you
Jane,
very
for
much.
everything.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank
Jane.
you. Thank you.
Don't be a stranger.
Try not to be.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Oh, you gotta adjourn.
Wait a minute. Do we have a motion to
Oh.
adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
By Mrs. Guarino, do we have a second?
I'll
Second.
second. Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry, Gina Gusconi has her hand raised, but they're adjourning, Gina.
That's all right, Gina.
Go ahead, Gina.
Okay, sorry, I didn't have your agenda handy here to see if there's a public comment. Gina Gasconi, 35 Wall Ave. I would just like to thank Jean for her dedicated planning board service, plus her, I'm also chair of the Community Preservation CPC that you referred to. I'd like to say Jean will be missed, definitely, and just ask that you, I'm sure whoever you appoint will be an asset to us. I just ask that the appointment be made sooner rather than later. As Jane said, we have a number of projects coming up that we'd like to have, if we could, a full committee. So, to Pat, thank you to Jean, requesting that you just make an appointment soon.
Thanks, Gina.
Thank you.
See you on the trail.
Yeah, I'll be out there, and I'll see you about the trail and next week, your last CPC meeting too.
So we have a motion by Mrs. Graham. Did we have a second by Mr. Geller? Was that correct?
I didn't write that down, so yes.
Okay, so Mrs. Graham,
Yes.
Mr. Jemmy,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Geller,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay. Good night, everybody. Thank you very
Good
much.
night.
All right,
Have a good
thank
one.
you.
Night.
Aye.